Okay, it is now 1:45, and so I resume the hearing. Still have a number of cameras off. Ms. Cottier, are you there? Yeah. Ms. Cottier, are you there? Right, apparently not.
I am. The thing is not working again.
Yeah.
It's just very
Okay.
temperamental. So, but it probably start. Just don't worry about it, and I'll just try and fix it while other things are going on. Okay.
Well, I just wanted to make sure that you could hear me, because I wanted to address you and also Mr. Williams. So if you can all hear me all right.
Yes, I can confirm I can hear you.
That's great, thanks. So yeah, I'm not tremendously fond of loose ends and unfinished business. So I have spent some of my lunch break having still a brief look at the submissions that you have both sent me. I started off by looking at those from Bloor, and then started to look through your submissions as well, Ms. Cottier. It's quite clear, even on a brief look, to me, that an additional note, albeit a short one, hopefully, from Mr. Williams from Bloor Homes would be of assistance. That's by and large because your submissions, Ms. Cottier, are admirably detailed, and it's quite clear from your submission that matters there, you know, that the situation there is not necessarily a straightforward one. Because it's not straightforward, that I gather is the reason why just to be clear, the term misled, as I'm using, that anyone's trying to mislead me or anything like that.
So forgive me for interrupting, but I'm afraid you broke up.
No.
You were frozen. So perhaps you might just, because it is quite important, but you might just want to start again on that. I'm so sorry, but I don't know whether everybody else was having the same difficulty, but certainly on my screen,
Okay.
yeah, I see lots of nodding heads.
Okay.
You were freezing at the critical point.
Oh, good.
I think we got to the stage where you were saying it was not straightforward, and therefore the reason why. And then we were hanging on your every word, sir, and I'm afraid you froze.
Oh dear, right, okay. My apologies for that. Should it happen again, then please do let me know. Yeah, so yeah, the reason for that is that, as I said, I don't know if this was heard or not, but your submission, Ms. Cottier, is admirably detailed, and I thank you for that. It's quite clear from a brief look at your submission that matters, you know, that the situation is not a straightforward one. Frankly, that's pretty apparent just from the, you know, the level of research that you've done into it. It's not a straightforward situation. I think that because it's not straightforward, that Mr. Williams is concerned that I might be misled. And misled here as a term, as I'm using it, I know you're fond of definitions, and quite rightly so, Ms. Cotier. It's not about anybody trying to mislead me or anything like that. It's frankly about me not understanding or getting something wrong. And if I get something wrong, it's not helpful to anybody. So in short, because it's a bit of a complicated situation, I can see why Mr. Williams might be concerned that I might get something wrong. And therefore, I think it's only right and fair for Bloor Homes to have the opportunity to clarify the more complicated areas. And that is it. I don't want to be taking up any more hearing time on that point. I've already taken up quite enough of that. You've got your hand up, Ms. Cotier. Is that because you wanted to say something, or because I sort of called you in, or?
No, I wanted to ask, can I also submit comments on the maps that he's provided? Because there are things that I believe, well, are misleading, essentially. For example, he hasn't said where his maps were sourced from, and you requested that we quote clearly our sources. And also, one map is missing. He's only presented the DCO map, but he was also asked to present the full enterprise zone planning application 17020300 map, which is not the DCO. So that's missing. And the labels were removed, as far as I could see. If I had gotten his source of one of the maps correct, in the original there are labels, but they have not been shown. And they were also sent with some notes that were also incorrect, due to them saying that the area upon the EL1 land site is landscaping. And those parts that he is saying are landscaping are not. They are from figure 3.11 in the scheme development and construction report, which I gave as my source, and which you can see by looking at it, that's probably the same source as his map, but I don't know, he'll confirm that. And then the explanatory notes relating to that figure, that diagram, map, whatever, is enclosed within the same document, and it's picked out these areas and called them the Rochdale envelope. In other words, they relate to an enclosed building with a, I don't know, an unknown infrastructural related purpose. But Bloor Homes is not mentioned anywhere at all in that DCO scheme or its development or construction reports. They're really not a part of it at all. So, and as I already said, they can't be a part of the DCO under the Planning Act, so they're simply not. And it's so also to be included in the DCO application and be appearing on the map for the DCO that Louth presented and had contained in its construction reports, they would have had to have featured somewhere in the statutory consultation that they held, which of course they've never been a part of that. So I frankly find it most strange that he's attempted to implicate the housing development into an entirely different planning application and an unrelated DCO application as well. And in short, I found this to be a very odd response from the fellow. So could we also allow me to respond, because I have made those observations as he's made observations about what I've submitted.
I thought you might say that, and I'd anticipated the request, and here's where I stand on that. Look, the purpose, or part of the purpose at least, of me agreeing to receiving these documents in the first place was for two reasons, really. Number one, so that I could see on maps things that were being explained to me verbally during the hearings, so that I could actually put that together in my mind's eye through the benefit of having maps to go along with the words. And the other one is to establish matters of fact. So on the first point, Ms. Cotier, I think hopefully at least, I mean, I don't know for sure, but hopefully the documents that you've sent me so far do sort of show me in that map form that the stuff and the points that you were making to me at the hearings. And I can't say that for sure because I haven't yet had the chance to look through all of that document in its sufficient detail. But so what I would say is I'll accept, as I say, a note from Mr. Williams setting out explanation in terms of the matters of fact. And if, well, put it this way, if you think that there's anything that comes to me from Bloor Homes that is factually incorrect, then yes, I will let you have the opportunity to straighten the record, as it were, or to tell me.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so I will go then. Where am I going? I'm going to the non-strategic sites. Excuse me, was that Mr. Hutchinson, what your hand was raised for?
Yes, sir, it was. And it was really just a point of clarification from the discussion that we had this morning in consideration of the Burford Grange site. I just wanted to be clear, did Mr. Smith imply that this was not the right forum to consider the case we put because there was no change proposed to the overall contribution of the site to the Green Belt? Because of course, there is a change, and that change relates to the contribution that is recognised now in the update that that site makes in respect of the merging of settlements. And that in itself, we consider to be worthy of reassessment in terms of the allocation of this site for housing. Thank you, sir.
Mark, forgive me. I'm not sure as I entirely. Sorry, can everyone still hear me? I'm intermittently getting a message on my screen that is warning that my internet connection is weak or something like that. So if at any point I do drop out, please let me know. I'm not quite sure I follow the point. I don't know, Mr. Smith and Ms. Ormsby, if you can help me out there.
I think the point Mr. Hutchinson is making is that for the site in which his clients have an interest, there is no change in our overall assessment of the site. It was moderate and remains moderate. So I think on our interpretation of your question, it falls outside of the scope. I think the point he's making is that one of the assessment of one of the purposes within that overall assessment of moderate has changed, and therefore he's asking, does that fall within the scope?
And yeah, sorry, which precisely which site is it?
It's site IC2 in the local plan is its allocation reference, and it's site reference 40. Both are in the Greenbelt Review update. It's page 315 of the Greenbelt Review update if you just want to deal with this as a distinct point now.
So, Mr. Hutchinson, then, yeah. So, if I understood that correctly, then we are talking about site IC2.
That's correct.
Yeah, the overall contribution for that hasn't changed. it remains moderate. I am focusing clearly on the change in the assessment, and I think you were saying that there was a change and that had some relevance. I'm not quite sure where your point's going.
That's correct. That's what I mentioned this morning, sir. That if you look at ED 161A on page 21, table 3, there under site 40, you'll see that there is a change in the contribution to Greenbelt purposes to significant in terms of the merger of settlements. Now that was discounted previously in the original Greenbelt study, but has subsequently in the update been included as significant. So I'm not sure.
Well, if you tell me why you're concerned about that, that might assist.
Well, the acknowledgement previously was that that didn't have any impact as far as merger was concerned, and yet it's always been our case that in this particular instance, if the separate identity of Ickleford is to be retained, is absolutely essential that that site's retained as open.
Okay, I understand the point.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Hawkins, I believe that you wanted to say something about non-strategic sites.
I think I've said all I need to say now. Thank you, Inspector.
Okay, thank you. Okay, on non-strategic sites then. Okay, Mr. Griffiths.
Thank you, sir. I'm guided by you this morning and indeed by Mr. Smith in concentrating on changes from the GBRU. As you can see, I'm not only engaged here by CPRE, but also by the 3 parish councils. There are no changes with the review as regards Wymondley. I'll deal with the site in Wymondley next Monday, if I may. You've heard Mr. Watts on Codicott this morning, for which there is no change. There is, however, a minor change at Nebworth, and I just wanted to briefly comment on that. That is in on the list. It's 8A as a subparcel, and it's the site to the east of Nebworth, which you can pick up on figure 4.6 in the review, and it shows that only on part of that parcel, which is the
Well, forgive me. First of all, I'm still taking it that you mean the update.
I do mean the update, yes, the review.
And, did you say subparcel 8A?
I did say figure 4.6, and it's what is 8A, it's site 52. And there's a little bit of that, which is 335, and that's where the change is diminished from moderate to limited. I think that's probably because there is that site partially has a building on it, but I think we nevertheless would think that it should not be considered to be limited, because I think the whole of that parcel 8A does make a contribution to the purposes of the Greenbelt. So we don't want to see that. For the rest of Nebworth, there doesn't appear to be changes, but I just point up the fact that on the east side, you've got policy KB4, you've got the sub-parcels 55 and 58, which are still labelled as significant. And go back to the points we were making at matter 7 and earlier about the importance of those particular parcels to the purposes of the Greenbelt. That's all I want to say on small sites. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Griffiths. Mr. Goatley.
So thank you. Just to assist you with your notes in respect of that, in the Greenbelt review, you'll see that for KB4, which Mr. Griffiths was referring to.
You'll forgive me, Mr. Goatley. Only a few words into your submission, so do forgive me.
Not at all.
When you say the review, do you mean the review, or do you also mean the update?
I do beg your pardon, sir. It's the Greenbelt review update. It's my error, and thank you very much for pointing that out. Because it's looking at the update. The update has got a couple of, to my mind, helpful tables that should assist you in navigating your way through. And if I can invite you to have a look at, in the update review, table 8, which is on page 42 of that, and you will see that so far as KB4 is concerned, looking at the overall contribution, first of all, from the Greenbelt review and then the update, you'll see that for that there is no difference of outcome. The only point that Mr. Griffiths has referred to has been, if anything, the finer grain texture exercise that was undertaken, which was a reduction to limited from one of the matters that was previously identified as moderate. So to that extent, an improvement in position, but one which, in terms of the overall approach, you will see has not generally altered the assessment that was undertaken. You might also, within the same update review document as well, have a look at table 6, page 35, which contains, again, a similar resume. And you'll see it about halfway down the page for the relevant parcels that we're dealing with, which is 58, 55, 57, and 336, if you see those. And those are all within the no change category. So from that point of view, not going to trespass over the matters which were discussed at the last session, which was some time ago, as we're simply dealing with what is the position in terms of any changes. And on the basis that there are no material significant changes that need to trouble you between last time and this time, that's all I would seek to assist you with in drawing your attention to those matters.
Thank you. Thank you for that, Mr. Goatley. Mr. Whale.
Yes, thank you, sir. It was simply, I just didn't want Mr. Griffiths or anyone else to think that this reference to KB4 was in some way passing me by. I have said nothing so far because there wasn't any change in the assessment, and because your question is very clearly about that, really I have nothing more to say. You know Mr. Wilson's position on KB4, but as I say, I just didn't want Mr. Griffiths in particular to think I was either not listening or not following the discussion. I absolutely am, but as there's no change, I don't think I can help you out anymore on your particular question.
Thank you. for that. Yes, just because people aren't speaking, I don't assume that they are therefore sleeping. Okay, and anyone else on non-strategic sites? Ms. Hamilton.
Hi. So would that class as GA1? Yes, it would, wouldn't it? GA1.
Well, sorry, did you say GA1?
GA1, yeah.
GA1?
Yeah.
Yes. GA1 is a non-strategic site.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this just sort of reinforces everything that I've said. In that I think it was critical that a Greenbelt review update was done based on all 5 purposes. But it does show that even though I've said that sites, I believe that there's 19 parcels offering significant contribution that equate to 8 sites, and then the further safeguarded land that offer a significant contribution in total in the plan. And I do think that they have to be reassessed. It has to make some sort of impact on this plan, otherwise it won't be sound. But I do think the sites need to, even though some of these sites do offer a significant contribution, this is why I feel it needs to be looked at a site on site. In regards to GA1, this is where it pained me to sort of like, you know, being part of Save Our North Herts Greenbelt, sort of like all these sites are important. But this is just where I wanted to say that although GA1 is on significant contribution Greenbelt, it would be seen as a cohesive neighbourhood, so to speak, and it doesn't have the environmental impacts, and it is not used by thousands of people, unlike GA2. So although it does offer a significant contribution, I just feel that like all sites need to be sort of readdressed on there by mixing that contribution of Greenbelt along with other mitigating circumstances. So yeah, in regards to villages for growth and all of these, because obviously some have actually decreased in their contribution as well to the Greenbelt too. And I think that also needs to be taken account. That's highlighted areas that is not going to have such an impact on certain aspects of the Greenbelt purposes. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. Anyone else on non-strategic sites? Ms. Cotier.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to add something to what Nikki had just said about GA2. I've been there, well, for picnics over years, and I've visited there more recently as well. And I can confirm that it's a very heavily used piece of area, and there's a lot going on there. The whole place is buzzing with nature and wildlife, and the people love to go there to bird watch and also to walk their dogs, and people picnic. That's one of my fondest childhood memories, is picnicking over at Ashwell, because they had a little dolly house there, and it was basically really beautiful. I remember it well, and I think that it is very isolated. It's a bit of a hike to get there. You have to park a fair distance away, and if you want to get to it, it's not like connected to anything, and that's why you like it, because it's far away from civilization. Just to add that in. I know it's not my area exactly, but we don't only stay in Luton and live our lives here. We do go outside, and you know, well, not much this year, but usually. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anything else on any of these changes in assessment to sites before I look to the council? Before I pull up the drawbridge, and I won't hear anything from anyone else after that. So, okay, Mr. Griffiths.
Yes, so I don't think yet we've looked at the area 16 in the review, west of Stevenage. Have we not? I don't think we have. Just a comment on that.
Do you mean the safeguarded land?
Yes, I do.
Well, now's an opportunity to do it.
Just to square the circle, as it were. We note there that there is a change. It's been now classified as significant. I think CPRE overall agree with that. It's an area I know pretty well because I was involved in the late 90s in the discussions on the county structure plan, which in fact allocated that area for development in the 1998 version. Later on, I was involved in probably the most messy public inquiry ever, when there was a consortium of developers who were putting forward a Section 106 agreement on the whole of the land, by which time the County Council was objecting to it. So I know the area pretty well, and I think significant, I think, is a meaningful change, as it were. But obviously the proposal in the local plan is for it to be safeguarded. And I think I'd probably leave it there in terms of the final plan, because I think it needs to be reconsidered as a strategic site, as it was originally in the county structure plan, and then of course in the regional plan for the East of England. So, but I think there's a whole point here about that site and the other sites which we've looked at today in terms of the north and east of Stevenage, because I think Stevenage, I think as a borough council, seems to have some sort of territorial ambition. And it seems to me that if you look at the location of these various sites on the edge of Stevenage, I recall back in 1980 when there was a site put forward by Stevenage for development, and indeed the former New Towns Commission, and that was on the edge of Stevenage but in East Hertfordshire. And in the early 80s we had a joint public inquiry into the East Herts local plan, the first edition, and a Section 78, as it now is, public inquiry into what is now the Chels neighbourhood. And what happened there was that we put up a case for screening of Chels, to screen it from the Bean Valley, which I think has been very successful. But later on, along came the Boundary Commission, and that site is now in Stevenage. And what concerns me, and many others, I think, in CPRE and in the parish councils, is that these proposals add them all up, and it's Stevenage expansion for the future. So I think in looking at that as a safeguarded site, I think it's important that that is looked at in the round strategically with North Hertfordshire, Stevenage, East Hertfordshire, probably Welwyn Hatfield and Broxbourne together, to look at it strategically. Thank you, sir.
Thank you for that. Okay, a final call before I move to the council and don't return. Okay, thank you. Mr. Smith.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, we've grouped together a number of the points made. I think there are some specific points to come back to in relation to Baldock and east of Luton, and then perhaps some more general points, but I'll just work my way through them. I think firstly, just on the overall principle of the Greenbelt Review update, you've had our position in ED 185 following the Supreme Court judgment that was referred to, and our position is that it is still relevant as a matter of judgment to use the update and to have regard to visual openness.
Yeah.
Turning to some of the site specifics on BA1, I think in the context of this session and your question about the areas where the assessment or the assessed impact has increased, it's important on BA1 just to be clear that that upgrade and assessment is confined to relatively small parts of the site. The largest element of that site was deemed significant at the time of the original hearings, and the hearings were held on that basis. And if I can turn you to page 28 of the Greenbelt Review and figure 4.10 there.
Is that of the review or the update?
Sorry, the update.
Figure 4.10.
Yes, page 28.
Yeah.
You can see that to the north of Baldock, for the purposes of the Greenbelt Review and indeed the Schlar, we assess north of Baldock as effectively a composite series of parcels in the sense that we've looked at different scales of development there. And you can see the largest part of that site is labelled as Site 200, and that is significant in the update and was significant at the time of the original hearings, as was the parcel to the right of that labelled D. And the upgrade is limited to the two dark green parcels labelled as 201 and BR11A. So I just wanted to be clear in your consideration of this particular matter to what area that uplift applies. As I say, we've already effectively provided you evidence with our case for BA1 in context of the original review.
So sorry, it's I mean, obviously I can look at this at my leisure, as people seem to like to say, but BR11A, 201 and D, you say that's where the...
Sorry, not D, just the first two, BR11A and 201. If you flick on to page 37, there's a map there which shows the bits that have changed, and you can see again north of Baldock it's two relatively small patches where there is that upgraded assessment.
Okay.
There was a recognition effectively that those two areas can't come forward without the adjoining parcels between them and the urban edge, so it would be a slightly larger expansion than if you just look at the site themselves. On east of Luton, we'd say obviously the overall assessment is robust from the strategic parcels through the sub-parcels and down to the site. I think to pick up on some of the points raised by Mr. Williams around the change, again, if I could just direct you to figure 4.4 on page 19 of the update.
Yeah.
Within that, you can see towards the left-hand side, the parcels sort of 2A to 2I that collectively are obviously the sub-areas within Area 2. Now, none of the assessments of those have changed between the review and the update. And so you can see that in both instances within that Area 2, there's effectively a mixture of areas with a significant function and areas with a moderate function. Which goes to, I think, Mr. Beglin's point around sites close to the edge performing a more immediate function in terms of purposes, and those perhaps slightly further away, slightly lesser so. And in terms of why our overall assessment of Site 2 has changed is, as Ms. Cotier alluded to, there's kind of shades of grey within these bandings. You know, you can, I don't want to go there, but you could have upper moderate and lower significant or so on. And there's clearly a mix of influences in this area. And our judgment in the review is that simply that strategic parcel 2 kind of tips over the edge from moderate to significant. Although it's been accepted by all the parties that that's a matter of planning judgment and it's not a legal point in any case. With regards to the assessment of the site, and indeed all the sites, it's our view that you need to be able to understand the potential harm if these sites are to be developed, and that's set out in the methodology. And that's also an approach that's consistent with how you conducted the hearings at Matters 10 and 11 when we first held them. I think when we first started explaining that sites had moderate contributions or significant contributions, you asked us quite directly, would their release therefore equate to moderate harm and significant harm? And we answered that in the affirmative. So we're content that our assessment of this site and all the sites in that sense, looking at what the impact of introducing development into those areas might be, is also a robust approach. Getting slightly outside of Greenbelt, but while we're on east of Luton, there was some talk around the AONB and the possible extension. Again, we did a note for you around the time of the original hearings, ED 89, about the position on that. We're not aware that that has substantially moved forward. There's still no formal timetable for any review or proposal for any review. We know it's there on Natural England's desk as a proposal, but we would say you need to deal with the designations as they stand at the time you make your decision. A number of the other submissions made related to matters such as boundary treatments, incorporation of green infrastructure features, so woodlands and the like, relationships to adjoining settlements, rights of way, access to the countryside. And in terms of a local plan and this examination, we'd say that those are issues, firstly, to be identified appropriately in the relevant policies as issues to be sensitively addressed, which they are. If you look through policies SP14 through SP19, including the proposed modifications, there's a number of criteria in there asking these issues to be addressed. So incorporation of rights of way as green corridors to the wider countryside, sensitive treatment of adjoining settlements, be that Cockenham Mangrove Green in the east of Luton site or Gravely for the north of Stevenage site as examples. And again, we think that's a sound and effective approach, and it's proportionate in the context that the local plan is here to set a policy framework for future proposals to be developed and assessed against. And leading on from that, to be implemented through detailed master planning of these sites, which we're seeking to secure firstly in policy, and we've mentioned that a few times, and secondly from a practical perspective from the council, we're establishing the structures and the staff within the organisation to take those forward should you be minded to approve those or find them sound in your final report. So I don't think at this stage in the process we can resolve every last issue. We appreciate there are matters that need to be taken forward in these sites, but we're well aware of them. The plan addresses them effectively, and we will carry those forward, obviously subject to your findings. So I think overall on this matter, I think we recognise that these are challenging and complex decisions around Greenbelt. There's clearly weighty issues on both sides of the scale. You've got significance and harm on the one hand, and obviously all the issues we've discussed around housing supply, need, sustainable strategy, and so on the other side. And there's clearly divergent views on where you place your judgment or where you place the emphasis in exercising that judgment. We think we've exercised sound judgment in reaching our position. I'm not going to re-rehearse those at any length. Just by way of closing, I'll probably point you in the direction of paragraphs sort of 16 to 21 in our paper B. And it goes to the point Mr. Beglan made before lunch, in that it's somewhat inevitable almost that land that has the strongest contributions in Greenbelt terms also has some of the strongest locational credentials in terms of settlement hierarchy and sustainability. And our paper B kind of walks through that point. You know, we would consider that some of these sites, notwithstanding their significant Greenbelt impacts, are also some of the best and most sustainable opportunities for development in the district. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Smith, if you just bear with me a moment.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. There's nothing else from me. Ms. Cotter, you've got your hand up. I'm not going to take. Is it a query or something like that? Because I'm not going to take any further points in relation to any of the sites. So, do you have some sort of procedural query or question or something
relating to the Jamie Melvin letter, which was the response on the their position regarding the AONB application? Is that letter uploaded as an That, no, can you hear me?
Just about.
Oh, how odd. Okay. So that left. How about now? Good.
Try again.
Right. Okay. How about now?
Yeah, that's a bit better. Yeah.
Okay. It's a query on the Jamie Melvin letter from Natural England to you about clarifying the council's about the OANB position, status of the OANB position. Is that letter one of the examination documents?
I think it is, isn't it?
It was dated 23rd of March 2018, Natural England, Simon Berkeley, yeah, that one. North Hart,
yes.
LP.
Yes,
okay.
It is. ED123.
Okay, ED123. And my other query was that is the Atlas New Settlement Report 2015 also one of the examination documents? And if so, what number is that?
That's in the examination library. I think it's HOU 6, the North Hertfordshire New Settlement Study.
Right, okay, that was what I wanted to ask. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, Louise, St. John Howe.
Yes.
Thank you. I just wanted to triple check, as I have it. Tomorrow we eventually settled on the afternoon, didn't we? Is that right?
Yes, we did. It starts at 2 o'clock.
Starting at 2. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. So unless there is anything else, I'm going to adjourn for the day. In which case, thank you all very much. It's now 2:35. I adjourn the hearing to resume tomorrow at 2 p.m. Thank you.